A lot of times people want to find leadership in a book. Like, yes, you will get things from books, 100%.
Sure.
But truly, like, if God has imparted leadership into your life, if that's a mantle He's given you, He's going to provide you with all the tools you need. And one of those tools is creativity. Sometimes you just have to think outside of the box.
What is up, everyone? Rob Sevilla here, your host of the Spitting Fire podcast, and I'm back with Mr. Tim Colson. Tim, will you say what's up to everyone real quickly?
Hey there. How's everybody doing out there in the Spitting Fire leadership community?
Yeah, so I know Tim is going to spit some serious fire today, but real quickly, before we dive into that, I always want to remind people why we do this, why we interview leaders like Tim all across the country, and that is to inspire you to be the leader that I know God has called you to be, but also to take that risk, to take that step to start either that side hustle or that business, that dream that I know that God has put in your heart. So Tim, welcome again. I'm so excited to have you. And you're all the way in, is it New Jersey, New York? Where are you at, Tim?
I am in upstate New York. Thank you so much for having me. It's truly an honor and a blessing, and I'm excited to be on this podcast. But I'm coming to you from upstate New York, the Hudson Valley.
Okay, Hudson Valley. So all the way up from New York. I'm all the way down here in Mississippi, so some distance there. But the power of technology allows us to come together and hopefully bring some value today. And I know you're going to spit some fire. But real quickly, Tim, I always like to start the podcast off this way, and that is I have each guest share their 30,000 foot view of their story. So tell us a little bit about your journey up to what you're doing today.
So I've been in the insurance and financial services space for it's going to be 10 years this year, if you can believe that. It's crazy to say that. But I was in retail leadership before that. I was store manager with Lowe's. They're a hardware store. I'm sure you guys have them down where you're at. And I just kind of I hit my ceiling. I knew that the mantle of leadership was always something that was placed upon me. And for years I fought it. But I worked hard at becoming the best leader that I could be at Lowe's.
Sure.
I hit my ceiling, and the idea of financial services always intrigued me, mainly because we grew up like lower class. And I watched my family and I watched other people struggle with money and struggle with the understanding of money and not looking at it from the right perspective. I did grow up Catholic, and I walked away from God for a period of time in my 20s, but He always kept His hooks in me. You know, I didn't get to walk away completely, but He used different ministries to speak to me and stuff. And then in 2014, I gave my life to Christ. I was baptized, and that was a year into my journey in the insurance and financial services space. And there's a whole story about what led me to baptism. I'm not sure if you want me to share that, but it's been an incredible journey. And, you know, as an entrepreneur, after I hit my ceiling at Lowe's, I left, jumped into financial services. And, you know, I tried a lot in my first year and a half, tried to do a lot of things in my own power. It almost felt like sometimes I was hitting the wall, right?
Sure.
And then after I gave my life to Christ, I really tried to adopt the just let God work, you know, let less of me, more of God, and just put my faith into Him that He's gonna carry me through. And that's what I'll say about entrepreneurship. It's truly a faith-based thing. You have to have faith.
Yeah.
You can't wake up in the morning and think that you're gonna lose. You can't attack it from that mindset, because then you lost the day before it even began, you know? So, have I been perfect in the last 10 years? No, I haven't. You know, I think I'm a human being. There's only one perfect person. So, that's kind of it. I kind of jumped around a little bit there, but my faith has my faith has been a huge part of my journey, because when I came into the business, I wasn't saved. And I had just split up with my older boy's mom. I was addicted to some things, you know, I battled some addictions, and I remember very clearly I went out with some people at the office, because I worked at as a financial advisor with a captive company.
Sure.
Went out one night, the Rangers, I'm a big Rangers hockey fan. They lost in the Stanley Cup Finals. We were out at a bar. I was drinking, doing other stuff, just feeding my addictions. And I woke up the next morning, blacked out on active railroad tracks.
Wow.
And it's by the grace of God I'm here today, because it was like a few minutes away from my parents' house, and I don't understand how I was able to walk away from that unscathed. But I made the decision. I had a preacher that was ministering to me for months. He actually let me come do a financial seminar at his church, and I wasn't even a saint there. I wasn't saved. And I made the decision like that afternoon. I was like, I have to give my life to Christ. I can't live like this anymore. So my faith, my commitment to God has been intertwined with my journey of entrepreneurship almost all the way through, so yeah.
And it's interesting because as a Christian entrepreneur, I know some people don't like that term, but really you can't separate the two. You just use the word intertwine. Like I have some people tell me, well, you need to dilute that. Don't be as passionate about that. We love the entrepreneur side. We love the motivational, inspirational side, but we could we tone this side down? And I tell them I can't, because it's woven into every fabric of my being, right? It's who I am. Like I have no business if God doesn't give me this business. It's not my business, it's his. And he's just allowed me to steward that, to manage that. And so I love the story that you're sharing with us today, because I think for a lot of us, when we go on this entrepreneur journey, we don't realize that, this is all God's, and he's given us this unique gift set, given us this unique message. He wants us to minister to a certain unique group of people that he's called us to. I call it our assignment. And it's really interesting how you began to mature into that up into what you're doing today. So today, real quickly, and then we'll backtrack, you have a successful financial services business, correct?
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. And you probably just saw me lean back. My wife shared something with me yesterday, a scripture. And if you don't mind, real quick, I'd like to share it, because it goes along the lines of talking about how everything is intertwined. And let me just pull this up here real quick. So I think a lot of times, like what you had said is very important, because there's a lot of times that I've seen Christians that I would never know they're Christians.
Sure.
Based upon their business practices, the way that they mentor and coach people. And listen, I'm not perfect. Like I fail a lot.
Sure.
I fail a lot. But, they're in the book of Corinthians, 2 Corinthians 6:3-10. We live in such a way that no one will stumble because of us, and no one will find fault with our ministry. In everything we do, we show that we are true ministers of God. We patiently endure troubles and hardships and calamities of every kind. We've been beaten, been put in prison, faced angry mobs, worked to exhaustion, endured sleepless nights, and gone without food. We prove ourselves by our purity, our understanding, our patience, our kindness, the Holy Spirit within us, and by our sincere love. We faithfully preach the truth. God's power is working within us. We use the weapons of righteousness in the right hand for attack and the left hand for defense. We serve God whether people honor us or despise us, whether they slander or praise us. We are honest, but they call us impostors. We are ignored even though we are well known. We live close to death, but we are still alive. We have been beaten, but we have not been killed. Our hearts ache, but we always have joy. We are poor, but we give spiritual riches to others. We own nothing, and yet we have everything. We don't own this thing. First of all, like this, what you said, this is not ours. God bestowed this upon us. It's ours to steward. It's not ours to run. And that's something that I battled with for a while. It's like I try to do things in my own power,
Sure.
But the reason I like that, the reason that I think about business when I read that, because what we do stumble. People don't like us. We walk up to random strangers at their homes and they spew things at us. And then we have a decision to make in that moment. Are we going to continue to show them the love of Christ?
Yeah.
Are we going to let it derail us? or are we going to just further try to advance the mission? So yeah, I just really liked that yesterday. I thought it was so timely because I'm making a shift in my practice. And it's, it's scary, but it's like a good scary. I have a lot of faith that God's gonna come through, and He's gonna do a new thing in my practice and in my life, and I'm really excited for it. So,
yeah, and
yes.
I feel like I need to touch on this real quickly. So whether you're watching this today on YouTube or whatever platform, or you're listening to this, the reality is, what I love about the grace of God is that it allows us to fail forward. Right? We don't have to be stuck in failure. Failure doesn't have to be final. I promise you, God has more grace than you do failures and stumbles. And so I love that. And same thing, Tim. I wish my story was perfect. It's not. It's very messy. I've made a lot of mishaps and mistakes in my life. I've failed miserably in different seasons in my life. But the only thing that I can cling to is His goodness and His grace.
Amen.
And I like to tell people this. If you will give God all those mistakes and mess, He will do a miracle in it and through it. Yep. Right. And so that's really what we're talking about. So let me ask you this, from the Tim that, kind of walked away from your faith for a season and came back. And I think in 2014 is what you said. From that time now to where you're at today, share with us one of the biggest breakthroughs that you've had, whether it's spiritually, whether it's in business, whether it's both, whatever area. What is so different about Tim today in 2023 from that time in 2014 that's allowed him to have the success, or allowed you to have the success that you're having today?
Well, there's a couple things.
Sure.
But I think that the main thing is that God has... I've experienced certain things in my life. Like the first thing is that my dad, my parents, addiction just runs through my family.
Sure.
It stopped when I was saved. That's not going to touch my kids. I plead the blood of Christ over that. But I watched my dad, unfortunately, he was addicted to alcohol, and he took a fall in 2014, and it was like 3 months after I got baptized, and he split his head open. He was in a coma, and my dad was older. And there was many times that the doctors were going to take him off life support and all that stuff. And each time God came through and just did something, made a reason for them not to pull that plug. He ended up waking up about 6 months later, and that's when the real battle began. But what I saw as a financial professional is I unfortunately had to see firsthand the work that wasn't done with my parents. And I'm not just talking about investment work. I'm talking about wills, healthcare proxies, ensuring that there was access to bank accounts for my mom, making sure the right life insurance coverage is in place. Was there disability? What does the Medicare look like? Is there even health insurance? Because the thing is, I grew up watching my dad. He had the entrepreneurial spirit. He tried many times to make a business come to pass. And there was a lot of things that happened that he just couldn't get it. I don't know if it was support system wise or financially, whatever it was. But that's what kind of led me into being an entrepreneur, seeing him struggle, and trying to do it. And after that, part of my purpose for doing this is that I want to finish what my dad couldn't. I want to have that successful business. I want to have a legacy to leave to my kids. But I also saw firsthand how he wasn't served by the people that worked with him, the people he trusted, the agents, the advisors, whatever. And I'm not putting it all on them, but we are in a position of authority as advisors. We're not just insurance agents. We are the connection between somebody everything being okay on the worst day of their life or everything being a disaster. We're that connecting piece. Right. So for me, that experience, it taught me to treat every person as if they were my parents and fight to make sure that they don't end up in that same situation, because the fallout is crazy, man. My dad lived for 5 extra years. He was in and out of nursing homes. We had to balance Medicaid days. He could only stay in for a certain amount of time, and then he'd have to go back home, and then he would lose all the progress he made while he was home because there wasn't skilled care at home. And, you know, for a lot of years, I fought focusing on that part of my practice. I wanted to just focus on the investment work because people knew me as that guy, the investment guy. I wanted to focus on the life insurance, but, you know, going through that, I realized that story is a superpower, man. Like, I can really help some people by sharing that story. And, you know, it's a little uncomfortable, but when I find the right people that I share that story with, I'm able to help them. And I'll give you, for instance, one of my clients, Bob and Mary. I know we always joke like, oh, Bob and Mary, the client. Well, these people are actually named Bob and Mary.
Right.
So Bob and Mary, I met them in 2016. They were the parents of one of my new agents. And a common practice for me is that I always like to meet my new agents' parents. This is pre-pandemic. I try to do it now, but it's not always that effective in Zoom.
Sure.
But
Sure.
I would go over, have dinner, and I would just let them ask me questions, get to know me, ask what their son or daughter is getting involved in. And at the end of the dinner, Bob was like, well, you know, I'm happy you came over tonight. I was really hoping that you could help me because I own a trucking company and I've never sat with anybody before. And I'm like, well, yeah, of course I can. So went through all that and ended up he needed about $1 million and 1.25 million in insurance need. So we were able to take care of that for him. We broke it up amongst a couple different term policies, like did a layering technique, all that. And then we went on our way. His daughter was thrilled. He was thrilled with his daughter. She was getting into a great industry. April, it was actually yesterday, I saw on Facebook, yesterday, 3 years ago, his daughter called me and said, can you pray for my dad? And she's not a professing Christian, but she knew that like I will pray for her and I will pray for them. And I was like, yeah, what's going on? She's like, he's in the hospital. He's got like a gallbladder thing. We don't know what's going on. So she called me a day later and said he passed unexpectedly. Went in for like a stomach ache and passed away. I went to meet with Mary that Monday and she was terrified. But then she brought out the book of the meeting that Bob and I had and we went through everything. And I was able to like present that family with a check for $1.25 million.
Wow.
And they were able to grieve. And that's so important. And now Mary, to this day, she reinvested the money with me. She gets a check every month. The biggest hurdle we have is keeping her off Amazon.
Sure.
So, but yeah, that would probably be like the first experience. And then the second experience is I had a pulmonary embolism in 2021 and I almost died. So I think for me, it kind of reinvigorated my passion and that gave me an experience that I can share with people. And I think that's the biggest difference is I've just experienced more and I've experienced some hardships, some times that I wish were a little bit more perfect, but those imperfect times have created great opportunities for me to share with others. So,
yeah, man. Listen, God's not calling us to be perfect, my friend. He's just calling us to imperfectly progress. Right. That's what it seems like a lot of this life is. And I got to stop for a minute, take a quick time out. Whether you're listening to this, watching this, share your story. Quit being ashamed or embarrassed about what you do, because that story of yours could make a massive impact, a massive difference in the lives of other people. Same thing. We're primarily in the Medicare industry where we're at here in North Mississippi. And it's a ministry to us. It's a mission for us. And we love it when we get to help our clients and share these experiences and go the extra mile and see these families be able to get the health care and the coverage that they need. So no matter what industry you're in, quit being embarrassed to share with others what you do, because that could make a massive difference in that journey for those other people. So I love that. You know, you sharing those experiences, and thank you for sharing that in regards to like leadership, right? And leadership is, you know, it's been said that leadership is really nothing more than influence. Who has been a leader in your life that has really influenced you, that has helped push you to the version of Tim that we see today?
So I had a leader. Well, I had two leaders at Lowe's that really influenced the way that I lead. One of them was the guy that he would like show you. He would lead the way by doing. And I think that's really important. I think that there has to be a component to that.
Sure.
In any leader's arsenal. His name is Stephen Franklin. And then another one is, his name is Billy Bloomer. And he was just, he taught me not to be afraid of using my creativity and like thinking outside the box.
Good.
Like a lot of times people want to find leadership in a book. Like, yes, you will get things from books 100%,
Sure.
but truly, like if God has imparted leadership into your life, if that's a mantle he's given you, he's going to provide you with all the tools you need. And one of those tools is creativity. Sometimes you just have to think outside the box. And to be honest, like things are very different now. Like the way people are led, it's just not the same.
Sure.
Like
Yeah.
the way I was led 10 years ago,
Yeah.
I can't lead people that way now because people, they're just different. They do want to know, what is the purpose? How am I going to impact? Back then it was like, am I doing a good job? People don't care so much about that. They want to know, like, what is the impact they're going to leave by doing this thing that you're asking them to do. So you really have to like bring people along with you and work side by side with them. And that's where I feel like these two folks did a really great job. They taught me the importance of team building, of creativity, of being patient and listening. They also taught me the importance of not thinking I'm something just because I'm a leader. Like you have to stay humble, and God talks about that in the Bible. Like you have to stay low. Like it's not about you. Like everything that we're given is we're meant to take care of. And it's on us whether we choose to take care of it or not. So being a leader, like you have to take care of your people. You can't think that you're anything more than they are. You know, I think something that I like to do is I really try to create a culture of inviting other ideas and other perspectives, because I don't know everything. And there's ways of getting things done now that are so quicker than anything I could ever fathom.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I love that. And I want to go back to something you just said, but I want to say this again, is God not only gives you the calling, but he also gives every one of us a different level of creativity to perform that calling.
Yes.
Right. And so some of you needed to hear that today, that God gave you this creativity. He created you to be creative or to create. And so he's giving you this calling and he's giving you this level of creativity. So don't leave the creativity out. And if you're in an environment where that's not able to flow, you may want to take a quick audit and go, maybe I don't need to be in this soil. Yep. Right. And this is what Tim was talking about early on, is that he had hit a ceiling, nothing against the company he was working for, but he realized that he had way more levels of creativity. He realized that there was more impact he could make.
Amen.
And he decided to take that risk. So let me do part B to this question. Out of all the agents that you manage and that you lead, if we were to interview them, what is one trait they would say, Tim as a leader possesses this? We can say this about Tim as a leader.
So something that I implemented a while ago is I regularly ask for feedback. And I want honest feedback. And I've done different things in the past where I've tried anonymous, whatever. But I feel like with the agents I have now, like they know they can come to me and tell me if I'm wrong or whatever. So I did ask. There was a newer agent that's been with me for a couple months. And I just asked him, I said, what has your experience been like here as opposed to where you were? Am I doing a good job? Am I supporting you the way you need to be supported? Right. And the one thing that they said is that it's evident that I truly care. And I hope that when people meet me, whether you're a client or whether you're an agent or just whether you're somebody on the street that just needs to be encouraged, I hope that you know that when you leave the interaction with me, you know that I do truly care about you. Right. So
yeah, no, that's good. I love that. Besides your faith, right? We know that's a core value in your life.
Yep.
What is another non-negotiable, a core value, something that anchors you? Like, is there something you go, this is non-negotiable, this is how I live my life no matter what? Besides your faith, what other core value would you live by? Or you say, hey, this represents who I
am? It's impact. That's a word that always comes back to me, and I'm not saying it just because. So like I'm with Impact Legacy Group. They're my IMO, and I thought it was funny when I got set up with them, because I'm like, for years, like even in my business plan from 5 years ago, like impact is there as one of our core values. Make an impact wherever you go, whatever it looks like. When somebody meets me, I want to ensure that I've impacted them personally, professionally, spiritually, physically, financially, however. I want them to walk away knowing that they have the tools to be a better person. So to me, that's creating an impact. In my community, I want to make sure that I'm impacting the lives of people that have had a less fortunate situation. You know, if I can minister to them, if I can pray for them, if I can buy them groceries, or if they need to get through to something, you know, just any way I can create an impact. I'm always looking to do that. And I'd like to align people with our organization that are of that same mind. They want to do something that leaves an impact, like a positive impact. So, yeah.
No, I definitely love that. You know, making that impact and making that difference in people's lives. And really, I truly believe that we'll never find that fulfillment in this life until we're doing that, right? Yep. That's part of that calling that we've been talking about, part of that assignment that we've all been assigned, that we have these different callings, different assignments in our life, but it's to make an impact in the lives of other people for the glory of God. So I definitely love what you're saying there. Let me go way back to something you said early on when you were at that ceiling at that Lowe's. And then you decided to step out in faith, because there's people that watch this in all different industries, but there are people that are also looking to take that step of faith, or, you know, maybe they're an entrepreneur and they're about to give up because they're just in a hard season. What was it in you that said, you know, and I know we talked about faith, but give us the good, the bad, and the ugly just for a second in that moment, in that season, to go, I know I was created for more. I know I can do something more with my life. And what really was that catalyst in your life to say, I'm going to take this next step of faith? That's A. And then B, how did you really find the courage and the strength to stay with it? Because as you well know, as a fellow entrepreneur, that not every day we wake up just wanting to do jumping jacks and skipping out of the bed going, this is the best day of our life, right? And we want that. And we have to fight those negative emotions and feelings all the time. But talk a little bit about that. What was the catalyst, and then kind of how you've stayed consistent with that?
So the catalyst, and at that point I wasn't saved. So, I mean, I think for me, what I saw, it was my parents' advisor and I guess her boyfriend, but her boyfriend, he was a good family friend. He was the VP of, they were Forrester's Financial. And, you know, I think he just stayed after me. Every year he would invite me to his company barbecue, and he lived in the next town over. And every year, same conversation. Timmy, when are you going to come work with me? You'd be great. I see potential in you. You know, he did it. It was probably like 6 summers in a row. It was a long time. And then I had been feeling like I could do more with my life. And I wanted that, like, I wanted to have that breakthrough. And I looked back at some experiences I had. So before I made the jump, I was like, you know, is this something I could do? Do people trust me? Do they see me as an authority? And I remember I used to have people at Lowe's that would ask me for like stock tips or how to balance their 401k and stuff. And I'm like, you know, I really should just like try to move forward with this, because there's never going to be a better time than now. You know, I've identified, I hit the glass ceiling. I have this opportunity. So let me just kind of step out in faith. And I just trusted that everything would be okay. Was it? I don't know about that. It wasn't perfect, you know, but the the thing was, is a lot of things that are taught when you come into the business, at least 10 years ago, like your Project 200, working your warm market, stuff like that. I really didn't have that because my whole family and all their friends were clients of this one advisor that was in my company. So I think for me, I just trusted that, you know, what proven systems are there that I could leverage. And one of them was seminars. They were doing seminars, and I didn't know any better. And I said, can I buy into one? And I took some money out of my 401 that I had saved at Lowe's, invested in the seminar, and then I kept doing seminars, you know, and it kept putting me in front of people. So I think you just have to find a system that works and trust that it's going to work for you, and try not to reinvent it. Yeah.
So what's one habit that you had to really, because as you said, we got a choice every day. Do we let our feelings run our day, or do we let our faith run our day? Right. Or you know, so give us one habit of success, or one habit that allowed you to be consistent, to stay consistent with it.
So one habit I've adopted for just about, I think at least since 2014, set 2 appointments for some time in the future every day, whatever they look like. Because if you do that, you'll always know that you have something to look forward to in the future. And that helps keep your faith, right? You know, it's hard to look at a calendar and see a bunch of white space and to be motivated by that white space. It's terrifying. So yeah, just something very simple because it's attainable. And how do you do it? I mean, something that I like to do is I try to have 5 conversations a day about insurance. Sure. You know, like just 5 introductions a day. And that will usually lead to the 2 appointments for some time in the future.
I agree, man. In our business, and I think in any industry, it's a lot about just sowing the right seeds every day, and then eventually that harvest will come. But there's something I don't want us to overlook here in today's conversation. And once again, whether you're watching this or you're listening to this, I think it's very important that don't stop inviting people to the mission that you're on, or don't stop inviting people to the company. Don't stop inviting people maybe to the church that you attend, whatever the case may be. Because Tim told us there was this guy that kept inviting me. And I like to say it this way: your invitation could lead to someone else's transformation.
Amen.
Right? And think about that, whether it's faith, whether it's business, in whatever arena. So maybe you've given up and you've just gotten discouraged, and you go, man, I've invited these people. I've told these people about what I do 1,000,000 times. Well, go tell them 1,000,001, because you never know that all those other seeds that you've been planting, this could be the right season for that. And I can't tell you, as a former pastor, church planner, how many times that's rang true, Tim. I can't tell you how many times it's rang true in business, but we tend to get discouraged, and we tend to take it personally, and we tend to give up. And I love what Ed Milet says, and I've adopted this for my life, is my dream is not for sale. I'm not going to sell my dream cheap to fear, to discouragement, to hard seasons. Awesome. Right. And that's a word for someone today, that you need that spoken over you today. And you came here by divine appointment to hear his story, to hear this conversation, to put fresh wind back in your sails, and to just hear this loud voice saying, go one more day. Go one more day. Don't give up on your dream. And I love what you're sharing in your story. I love the fact that you shared about your dad. You said, you know what, my dad, for whatever reason, didn't make it. But I'm going to take that mantle, if I can use a Christianese term there for a second, right? I'm going to take that calling and I'm going to run with it. But I totally agree with you, Tim, is that I believe a lot of us have failed. I have failed a lot. I've done everything from selling security systems, the door-to-door this, to some vitamin jungle juice somewhere. You know, I've done it all. But I didn't give up, and people thought I was crazy. But I do agree with this, that I do believe that we can be doing the right thing in the wrong environment. Right? I believe the soil is very important. That's that community. That's that circle that you talked about. And it sounds like you've surrounded yourself with that circle. So I like to ask everybody that comes on the podcast this: if there was one word you would use to describe yourself, if you would go, I'm this, what would that one word be?
Oh boy. that's a good one. Passionate.
Okay. So let's talk about being passionate.
Yeah.
How do you think being passionate has carried you from that 2014 or been part of that formula, if you will, up into 2023? Talk a little bit about how being passionate has contributed to your overall success.
Well, I'm still here. So, I mean, that's probably the biggest thing. I mean, I was with a captive company for years, and
sure,
after leaving that system and going to be independent, it's like crazy different. It's crazy different. There's so much to learn. But in the most successful seasons of my business, my passion has been the underlying theme to the success, because my passion's kept me talking to people. It's kept me sharing the story. It's kept me putting stuff out on social media. Even when the days are bleak or I wake up and I don't want to do jumping jacks, there has to be a reservoir of something that you can pull from when you're parched, and that's what the passion has been for me. And probably in the darkest and like bleakest seasons of my entrepreneurial journey.
Right.
That's the passion's pulled me out of it. So,
yeah. So someone's listening, watching this today, and they go, I feel like Tim, I feel like I have that passion, but share with us, like, let's just be real practical. How have you fed that passion? Because you know, and I know that it's real easy to get dry. It's real easy for life just to knock the wind out of your sails. That's the way I like to put it. Right. And so are those books, are those podcasts, are those YouTube videos? I mean, do you have a mentor that's pointing your life, or is it a combination of all those? How have you fed that passion to keep you going?
Well, the first thing I want to touch on with passion, I think it's important to understand what you're passionate about.
Yeah.
Like that's a real thing. Like sometimes people are just passionate and they can say, yeah, I'm passionate. And okay, what are you passionate about? Well, I love IUL. And it's like, no, you can't get passionate about a product. Yeah. Like a product is not a living thing. Like what are you passionate about? Like what pulls you out of it? Like I'm passionate about it because I understand the importance of it. And I have personal examples.
Right.
You have to define that. And the way that everybody defines it's different. Like I pray for purpose. I pray to understand passion and calling. Sure. I take hard stock of like my life and stuff and like, what am I doing? Like, but the way that I feed it is, I would say a combination. Like I really like Ed Milet a lot. Like I really do. And I know he's like super popular. Love listening to his stuff. I do read. I love reading Maxwell books. Yeah. Another old school thing.
Yeah.
I've tried looking at some of the entrepreneurial devotionals, like for Christians and stuff. I can't always find for some reason, I don't always find the best ones, but I do find good ones in that arena sometimes. Yeah. And then, sports, I was a former hockey player. So like I do look like Kobe Bryant, like the man is just insane. Like the way that he like prepped himself, like there's a lot to say about that, like looking up to, I guess, examples in sports and stuff, the way that they take care of themselves and stuff like that. So I guess it's a combination of everything. I do have mentorship sessions with one of the men that I mentioned earlier, Billy. I do meet with him once a month and we just chat, we just go through stuff, and cause he's a leader now with Apple, and Apple is a very forward thinking company, and I'm able to pull golden nuggets from the things that he learns and implement them into my own life. So, yeah.
Yeah. And I teach people this, Tim, I love what you're saying, is that the content that we consume the most is ultimately what we become the most like.
Yes.
And some of you need to starve the negativity, the blaming, the bitterness, the complaining, the grumbling, and you need to feed this gratefulness, this thankfulness that you got to wake up today, that all the blessings that you don't see because of all this other, right?
That is a whole podcast topic in itself right there. I mean, from the music you listen to, like there's undertones in the beats and stuff. Like you have to be very particular about what you consume through your eyes and your ears, because both those things, the pathway it leads down to this. And if you put the wrong thing in both, it's going to destroy this. And when this is destroyed, and I'm pointing at my heart, everybody, I think that's, So if once your heart is destroyed, it's very, very hard to move forward. And it takes a lot of rebuilding and courage to get through even that season. Like that's a whole different thing. So,
and you're crippling your calling.
Through
the content you're consuming. If it's negative, is what I'm meaning. Right. And people don't realize that they're self-sabotaging themselves because, and I know people think, oh, this is just kind of weird. And, you're being a little legalistic or whatever. I'm not trying to be any of that. I'm just telling you the truth from personal experience, that the content you consume the most, reading, podcast, YouTube, music, whatever, is ultimately going to determine what you're going to become the most like, whether you realize it or not. So you got to be on purpose with the content that you consume, or you will never live on purpose.
Amen.
Right? You'll be like the masses and default and just be like everyone else and just consume everything you can. And then you look up one day and go, why am I not successful? I had to have those hard looks at myself as well. It's taken me a long time in life, and I was a slow learner, and I had to take a lot of hard knocks in my life. And it's only been over the past several years that I've been able to wise up and go, man, I really need to be on purpose in my life. So I appreciate you sharing that. As we close today, as we wrap up, let me ask you this. Let's just say there's someone out there right now that knows God's called them to be a leader, that knows that they're called to an entrepreneur space, or maybe they're called to both, to be a leader in the entrepreneur space, but they're just scared, right? They're maybe like you in 2014 and go, man, I got this guaranteed this, but I know there's a greater calling. I know there's something more for me out there. What is something you would speak into their lives today as we wrap up that maybe could be that catalyst for that change in their life, right? What is some advice that Tim would share with those people that are listening or watching today?
So the first thing I would do is I would tell them to pray, spend a lot of time in prayer, and just like ask God to reveal to you your calling. Ask him to reveal, like to give you signs and things that will point to what your calling is, and be intentional about writing it down and like dissecting it and what it means. Like there's nothing wrong with being analytical. The only time it becomes a problem is when you get paralysis by analysis. So it's okay to analyze the things that God puts on your heart, and to definitely put them on pen and paper, pray about them, make a prayer list, find a trusted mentor in your life and talk to that person and say, hey, this is what I'm feeling like God is seeing in me and what he's calling me to do. You know me really, really well. What is your take? Like ask a trusted mentor's opinion. And then what I would do is I would start to build a transition plan. I think there's nothing, like I understand burn the boats and go all in and stuff like that. There's power in that, and there's people that can do that. But, you always want to do things in the order of God, in the will of God. You don't want to try to like burn the boats, and God wasn't ready for you to burn the boats, because then all that's going to do is you're going to find a boat over here to the left that you're going to have to get on, and it's going to circle you back around to the same place. So having a strong transition plan, looking at what does that look like? Pray about a number. Like once I have X amount coming in each month, I'm going to make the switch. I'm going to flip the switch, and I'm going to go all in on this. That's something that I've found that I've had success with agents, newer agents, finding that number and then making a transition plan. And then once you do it, like go all at it. Like, that's what I would do. That's advice I would give.
No, I definitely love that, man. You got to stay in alignment with the one who gave you the assignment, right? That's where the prayer comes in. How do I stay in alignment with you? And then I love that, to analyze, but don't be anal, right? Some people get so anal on it that it stifles them, it paralyzes them, as you said, and they never move forward. And then even Proverbs, the wisest king to ever live, says that you have a better chance of your plan succeeding right? When you have many advisors, when you have those mentors and those counselors in your life. And maybe some of you are just listening to the wrong folks, right? Maybe the wrong people. And you need to switch that circle and find people that are actually where you're wanting to be, right? Like where you're going.
Yep.
So maybe
that truly want the best for you. Because there are some people, like we know that there's leaders that they lead for the benefit of themselves. They don't lead. They mentor for the benefit of themselves to prop themselves up, So that's a big part that I would analyze your circle too.
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
Kind of a couple steps back, but
no, I totally agree with that. That's part of that soil, that culture. That's part of making sure you're congruent with whatever company or whatever organization you're going, to align yourself with. So I appreciate that. Listen, as we close today, any last words that you just go, man, I just got something kind of boiling over in me that I want to share before we get off the podcast today?
I mean, I don't want to sound cliche Christian, but just know that like you were created for a purpose, like that we all were created for a purpose. We were gifted talents and abilities, whether it be teaching or it could be something as simple as administrative or like, cause whatever your calling, your giftings are, I want to urge you to discover them and then use them to the full potential, because every moment that you don't, you're just wasting what God gave you, and there's nothing more impactful. There's nothing more powerful than living a purposeful life, like living in your calling, whatever it looks like. I don't know what it looks like for every person. It's different for all of us, but I would just urge you to discover that and walk in it,
Yeah. So that's good. And I want to say this too, because I meant to mention this a few seconds ago, is I love the fact about, burning the boat, because we hear that a lot in the motivational, go all in, and those are all true things.
Yeah.
But burning the boats looks different for all of us, right? For some of us, burning the boats means, hey, I need to start that side hustle in this season, right? And I need to burn the boats in such a way that I'm building that side hustle until I get it to a certain point to where I can transition full time. That's okay. Doesn't make you any less of an entrepreneur, any less of a person. So I'm glad you brought that up. For some of us, God's already told you for many years, burn all the boats and go all in.
Yep.
And you keep holding on to this safety and to this comfort and that safety is killing that God dream that he's put in your heart.
Yes.
Right. So you needed to hear that today from Tim, that it looks different for all of us. Tim, where can we find you online? Are you on Facebook, TikTok, IG?
Yeah, so you can find me on Facebook, Tim Colson. I think there's a picture of me and my wife on there. And then on Instagram, I'm at The Real Finance Dad.
Okay.
That's me. So,
okay.
I love Instagram. I love Reels and all that stuff. So you can find me on one of those two platforms. And, if you ever need encouragement or you ever want to just chat about anything, 845-235-6371, shoot me a text and I'd be happy to make some time for you. So.
Absolutely. And I will make sure to put all that in the description below and in the notes.
Thank you,
well.
brother.
But
this is a blessing, man. I appreciate you bringing me on and giving me the opportunity to chat with you.
Absolutely. Thank you for being generous with your time today. And as we close, once again, I just want to encourage you, don't give up.
Amen.
Right? I know it sounds so corny, but just don't give up. There is a God dream that your Creator has put in all of your hearts. He's called you to be a leader, whether you realize it or not. And I believe that all of us are called to more. And so I pray that something that we talked about today, I don't want to just motivate you. I want to divinely inspire you. I want it to be a spirit to spirit thing that you go, you know what? I'm not going to quit. I am going to go after everything that I know that God has for me. And I just want to encourage you to make it an awesome day. We have to make it an awesome day, right? They don't hand out a lot of awesome days for free anymore. You got to be intentional about making it an awesome day. And God bless you guys. Please comment, like, subscribe below. Share this with someone who needs to hear this today. And we'll see you next time.
Amen.